hope many, if not all of you, were able to hear our keynote speaker, Arvin Garma, who did a phenomenal job, not only of telling her story, but encouraging us to think about what more we can do in terms of creating more inclusive spaces and environments from an accessibility lens. Good afternoon to some and good morning to others. My name is Naya Blair Hackworth. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I serve as the director in the Office of Inclusion. Thank you for joining today's session, Mitigating Unconscious Bias for Inclusive Excellence. Unconscious bias impacts us individually and collectively in seen and unseen ways. And if we do not consistently work to eliminate our conscious and unconscious bias, then we cannot achieve inclusive excellence and remove systemic barriers. Today's session will not only share what unconscious bias is, but its impact. And for the past year, all of us here at the National Office have been committed to unlearning and learning, unlearning about our harmful ways that we do to contribute to unconscious bias, but to learn ways that we can personally and collectively work to eliminate our unconscious bias to better serve you, the membership. So without further delay, our session speaker is Amanda Bunnell. And so she's going to talk with us and share a little bit more about unconscious bias, and we're going to engage with her in the chat. So Amanda, turn it to you.
All right, hello, good morning and good afternoon. Thank you, Naya. I'm excited to be joining you all in this conversation about creating inclusive environments at the Inclusion Forum in this virtual space. Today, we're going to really talk about inclusive excellence as it relates to workplace and hiring and promotion within your organization. As mentioned, my name is Amanda Bunnell, and I am the founder and CEO of the Inclusion Consultant Network. Again, I'm excited to be with you in this virtual space and also looking forward to joining you next year in person. I know we're looking forward to having the Inclusion Forum be in person in the near future. So to get us started, as Naya mentioned, we'll be communicating via the chat, and she'll be watching the chat for me. So the first question I'd like to just ask all of our participants is, if you can use this chat, talk to me about, from your perspective, what is bias? When you hear that term, what does that mean to you? And I'll give folks a few moments to go ahead and drop those responses in the chat. All right, I see our tendency to act in certain ways based on our own experiences, assumptions, having a disposition without knowing why, favoring one group over the other, preferences, a judgment based on past experiences, acting on stereotypes, preconceived notion about a person, group, or thing, judgment, favoritism, stereotypes. Oh, now they're coming in really fast. So, it sounds like we have a pretty good understanding of what a bias is and the different ways that it shows up with stereotypes. And again, the word assumptions and presumptions is coming through a lot. So this group obviously has a great start. So we'll go ahead and keep going. And that bias is a prejudice in favor of or against a thing, a person, or group compared to another. It's held by an individual, a group, or an institution, and can have negative or positive consequences. What's important about this definition is that a lot of times we always think that it's negative and it's something to avoid, but there also can be, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, affinity bias, where it's in the positive side. It stems from us as humans in our experiences, culture, friends, family, and childhood. And it's important to understand because it can negatively impact others and your workplace culture. So when we talk about creating inclusive environments and inclusive work environments, you want your staff and your coaches and everyone at your institutions and organizations to feel like they can bring themselves to the workplace, but that workplace culture is really created by bias. And so we want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. Also know that we all have bias as humans. I have bias, you have bias. And so the point of focusing on unconscious bias is so that when we are aware of the biases that we hold, we can control its organizational power over us to not impact our decisions in the workplace. Okay, so there's different types of bias that we're going to focus on. The first is implicit bias. So implicit bias is a prejudice and attitude that turns into an action that is unconscious. So because you feel a certain way about a group, you unconsciously act a certain way towards that group. So it starts with stereotypes and then it leads into action. It leads into discrimination. And that's where we see the practice piece of that. And implicit bias is damaging when we use it to make decisions. We think about things only from our lens, and we make assumptions about people, and we fill in the blank. And so, because of our lens and our understanding and our upbringing and what we perceive to be right from our worldview, we make assumptions about people's behaviors and we assign meaning to said behaviors without really having an understanding as to why, again, because we're using our own lens. We don't acknowledge its organizational power. You'll notice I said earlier that organizations in themselves can be biased, and that can have biased hiring practices, biased pay review practices, biased policies that essentially are gatekeeping, right? Who's in, who's out, who's right, who's wrong. And this can even happen again with the best of intentions. If we're not being intentional and saying, we know that bias exists, we all have it, what can we do to mitigate it so that we can create an optimal space? Another example we see here is we doubt what is said to us by certain groups. We see this oftentimes when someone says, so an example I've heard people say is, someone I feel like judged me because I'm Latina, or I feel like they're treating me different because I'm a woman. And you respond with, well, maybe you're being too sensitive, or I know them and they would never do that. And you minimize, right, the impact of what's said to us by people. Or this question of where are you from, right? And I say, I'm from Indiana. And you say, no, where are you really from? And I say, Northern Indiana. And you say, no, no, no. Where are you really, really from? Right? When we make these assumptions about what is said to us by certain groups and doubt, right? We don't actually believe what they're saying because what they're telling us doesn't fit our assumptions of what we believe and perceive they should be. And so we oftentimes know that sometimes it's with the best of intentions of asking those questions, but all of those behaviors are implicit and they start to create a workplace that is what we call a chilly climate. We assign reasons for behaviors we don't understand. Instead of being inquisitive and trying to seek to understand, we assign, again, that meaning. And we bring it into work and we treat people different. So in thinking about implicit bias, it really does have an impact on workplace culture. Also, one thing I wanted to say is throughout this presentation, if anyone has any questions or comments, yes, I see we got a region rat in the chat. It's exciting. Please feel free to use the the chat to share the question. Oh, can you all not see my PowerPoint? I'm sorry. Naya, can you assist me for a second?
Yeah, we can't see it. We see your face, but we don't see
My
the PowerPoint.
apologies. My apologies, folks. This whole time I thought you could see it. Let's try this again. All right. Are we back in business? Okay. Thank you, Lisa. All right. So this is essentially what I was reading off and talking through. If you were unable to see this before. And another point I want to make here is that there's implicit bias that oftentimes we can acknowledge and identify pretty easily when it's face to face, right? How people make you feel, words that people say. But another area that we want to focus on is the transactional bias. So when you're thinking about looking at applications, reading emails, resumes, there's that transactional bias that can occur. That's between you and the words on paper that we see about a person. So let's take a resume, for example. There's assumptions that we make in split seconds by looking at folks' names, addresses, schools that they've attended, degree type, right? We're in sports, so we can talk about sports they played, maybe where they coached, different things like that. And that's without ever meeting the individual in which we're looking at that piece of paper. And so bias shows up in that process. And so that is that organizational power that we want to acknowledge in saying that, sure, if I see on a resume that someone's from Northwest Indiana, there is affinity that's going to exist there. But how do I control that in giving folks an equitable opportunity to have a diverse team as a part of my group? So there's the face-to-face bias that we can pretty much acknowledge fairly easily, but there's that transactional bias that we need to be intentional about mitigating as well. And then on the opposite side of implicit bias is, of course, explicit bias. So this, again, is probably what we see more explicitly, more commonly, where individuals are aware of their prejudice and attitude towards certain groups and blatantly push groups aside. So overt racism, racial and sexist slurs, behaviors that are discriminatory that intentionally communicate value, right? That you're not valued. And so again, for the purposes of our time, we're going to talk about the implicit bias that's a little bit harder to identify that we want to mitigate. Okay, so types of implicit bias that exist. And I want to read you these definitions, and I want you to think about where maybe this has shown up in your process. It could be with coworkers, how you engage with your coworkers. It can be how you engage with your athletes, how you engage with your administration. So think about maybe where this has shown up for you across and above and below. So affinity bias, it refers to when you unconsciously prefer people who share qualities with you or someone that you like. It occurs because your brain sees them as familiar, relatable, and comfortable. Affinity bias can cloud your judgment and which candidates are most appealing for your organization. It may cause you to hire fewer diverse individuals, which means less creativity and approaches to your work and your team. Attribution bias refers to how you perceive your actions and those of others. It stems from our brain's flawed ability to assess the reasons for certain behaviors, particularly those that lead to success and or failure. In recruitment, this can skew your view of a candidate's performance. It can make you focus too hard on their faults, minimize their accomplishments, and potentially disregard a talented candidate. So you make attribution to behavior and focus on faults rather than looking at the whole person. Conformity bias. We as humans have an innate nature to want to be liked, and we are social creatures. So what happens here is that when your views are swayed too much from the other group, uh, you oftentimes don't say anything. You want to hold opinion and views that are considered acceptable. And so then in recruitment, conformity bias happens when a majority of the group shares an opinion about a person or candidate or decision, and you choose to not say anything, even though you don't agree. And this happens oftentimes when folks are of marginalized backgrounds, when they're the only in a room and a majority of the folks are leaning towards one way. And they have to assess the risk all the time of determining should I say something or not. And so oftentimes what we see to create peace in workplaces is folks conform, even though they don't necessarily agree with the group, but they want to be seen as a part of the group. Confirmation bias refers to how people primarily search for bits of evidence that back up their opinion, rather than looking at the whole picture. It leads to selective observation, meaning you overlook other information and instead focus on the things that fit your view. So an example here is if there is a recruit or a candidate in a pool that I'm very excited about and I want to bring to our campus or our organization, I am looking for the different things that show, yep, this is why they're the best candidate. Yep, this is why I want to bring them. And then I try to create buy-in with everybody else. See, I told you, Naya's the perfect person, and here's why. And then also, that's on the flip side. If there's someone that you maybe think negatively about, you're looking for those different confirmations that back up your ideas. So let's say, for example, if someone is 5 minutes late, and you then get to say, this means that they're unorganized. This means they're not going to be a valued member of the team. This means that they're not going to be able to be a leader, because that 5 minutes, we've now assigned meaning to that behavior, when those being 5 minutes late could have been that they had technology issues or stopped by a train or what have you. But we were looking for those confirmations that basically validate our opinion of an individual. Context. This type of bias occurs when you assess two or more things and compare them to one another, rather than looking at each based on their own merit up against the requirements of the job. So if we have a position that we're trying to fill, instead, and I have two candidates, instead of looking at those two individuals in comparison to the job requirements, I'm looking at them up against each other. And so when we think about looking at tons of resumes or tons of candidates or tons of recruits, we start comparing them to each other instead of comparing them to the requirements of the position. And so this shows up when you oftentimes have a large load. You actually start to fade away from the requirements and instead start looking at each other. It does make sense in some contexts to show up when you have final two candidates, final two recruits, to look at the kind of holistic review of an individual outside of the job requirements. But the contrast effect we often see happen earlier because folks are looking to eliminate people due to time. And so sometimes they're not even looking at the job. They're just looking at the resumes against each other. And then the last one is gender bias. So here it simply refers to the performance of one gender over the other. It often stems from our own deep-seated beliefs about gender roles and gender stereotypes. And in recruitment, gender bias can cause the person to unconsciously lead towards a candidate based on their gender and the qualities that you associate with. So again, and we can see how this stuff manifests when you look at an organization and you take a step back out and we say, okay, when we look at an organization, who's on top? Do we notice similar patterns? Are there more women in entry-level positions or in certain sports than there are in executive level positions? If so, there may be some gender bias in the hiring process that we need to control for. I'll give you an example. There was a study done for orchestras in terms of first chair and recruiting individuals and interviews for the first chair of orchestras. Now, orchestras since the beginning of time have had the same number of seats, but overwhelmingly those seats were filled with men. And so in an attempt to be more inclusive in the process, they started to say, what's happening in our interview process that is passing through more men than women? And what they noticed was that the women oftentimes wore heels. And so they wanted to control for gender, so they put a curtain so that we weren't aware of the gender of the candidate. But because the women oftentimes wore heels, you could still hear them walking across the stage. And so they only saw a slight increase in women in the seats. Then, to control for that, they had every candidate remove their shoes. As a result of controlling for the shoes and the heels, they saw a 35% increase in women being selected for those seats. And so that's a really good example of how an organization stops and looks at what is our data, what's happening, how can we control for it. Again, it's not a favoritism, it's an equitable approach to diversifying the pool to get the top talent for an organization.
Amanda, you're sharing some great information. I don't know if you have additional slides to advance. It's still on types of implicit bias. And if not, we'll definitely, regardless, share this PowerPoint with the inclusion forum participants. But yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right. And these are other effects of implicit bias. The halo effect, and we all have this, right? Especially if you're a coach or a supervisor, it's that there's that one person, it doesn't really matter what they do, but you see them in a positive light. They can do no wrong. And so oftentimes you excuse different behaviors because they're your favorite. And then we see the opposite of that with the horns effect. Because you have maybe a little bit more strained relationship with this individual, you're much shorter in your forgiveness of behaviors. And it oftentimes clouds your view of the other qualities of this individual. So these are the effects that show up, the halo and the horn of individuals. Again, all related to your implicit bias. And how I'm doing on time.
What'd you say?
We're good. How am I doing this?
The time?
Mm-hmm.
We're doing good. You're doing well.
Okay. All right. Something else I want to share is the impact of implicit bias, a bias in an organization. So folks oftentimes, and we've seen this, right? We're in the middle of the mass resignation of organizations. And folks no longer want to survive at the workplace. They want to thrive. And we see that there's a lot of organizations and universities and companies that are investing in diverse talent in recruitment, but we're not seeing as much intentionality behind the workplace environment to create inclusive workplace environments. And so we're seeing a loss of diverse talent and high turnover And high turnover has financial implications for an organization. The other impact of bias is reputation, both internally, right? If certain officers are having high turnover and loss of diverse talent, and then externally, the community is watching, or stakeholders, and seeing that there's positions that are constantly being posted over and over again, and there is a cost factor to the reputation, both internally and externally, when we talk about bias. The other piece that I want to talk about is opting in versus opting out. So I've done lots of work with organizations around implicit bias and managers in saying we have these positions and we want to promote our diverse talent to senior leadership, but oftentimes we see at a certain level, particularly women and women of color are not applying for these positions. And so one study I did with a group of individuals was to ask a group of women at an organization, why do you not apply when these opportunities come forward? And overwhelmingly, they shared that the risk outweighed the reward in terms of, yes, I would have a higher title. Yes, I would be paid more, but I would be the only female in the room. I'm not listened to. My ideas are often taken from me and considered to be used as someone else's, so co-opted. If I have to leave early to get my kids or do something else, I can feel the eye rolls. And so I would rather be in this more flexible, inclusive, holistic position than to be at the top and survive that space, because there is a certain level of workplace trauma that we know is happening when you stay in survival mode. And so there can be this culture of opting out of positions, even though folks are saying, organizations are saying, well, we offered them top dollar. You have to look at the holistic piece of having folks, particularly diverse talent, in those positions. Sure, they will be on your brochure and they'll have a seat at the table, but do they have a voice at the table? Are their ideas considered? How is their diverse approach to the work or to a problem being considered in policy and practice? Moving from diverse representation to inclusive workplace culture. The other part of this in terms of impact is financial loss due to litigation. So the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has responded to over 470,000 calls to a toll-free number and more than 187,000 inquiries in their different field offices. This includes 122,775 inquiries through the online intake and appointment scheduling system. So there is a clear demand from the community for the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission. And we know that there is the financial cost of organizations and universities and offices that have to deal with this when they violate Title IX, ADA, age discrimination, and the Equal Pay Act. And I want to give you one example. The university, and this is public knowledge, the University of Texas Austin agreed to a $600,000 settlement with a former women's track coach in a racial and gender discrimination lawsuit. The coach was fired in 2013 after university officials learned that she had a relationship with an athlete 10 years prior in 2003. The lawsuit said that the coach, who was Black, received differential treatment than a white former assistant football coach who had also had a relationship with a student. But not only did he keep his job, he received a promotion during that time. So $600,000 is not a small chunk of change. So we see again that differential treatment has a financial cost to it, but also implications as it relates to racial and gender discrimination. And I know that there's other cases out there that have higher settlement amounts when it relates to workplace discrimination. So I want to take a moment, and I'd like to start with Naya, and then invite you all to join us in the chat. What strategies to mitigate bias have you used or seen in your current or previous organization? Again, when we're talking about that workplace. Naya?
Thanks for that question, Amanda. I've seen a lot in the workplace, but I don't want to steal the thunder from all of our participants. So I'll just share a few things that I've seen. One is organizations really looking at self-assessments, because I think, as you kind of talked to earlier, we can talk about what unconscious bias is and the different types, but unless people recognize like where they're at and where unconscious bias might come to play into, people are going to continue to see it as some other, like other people have unconscious bias, like I don't. And so I've seen other groups, again, utilize self-assessments and other kind of trainings and education to help with understanding where you're at individually, and then maybe where you're at as an organization or a department in terms of unconscious bias. The other piece that I've seen is within search committees, and I know you talked about this a little bit, is looking at not only who are part of the search committees, but how search committees are reviewing applications, how are they thinking about candidates. I know a lot of times in organizations, and I'm guilty of it in the past, have used the word like fit to describe like wanting to make sure someone's a part of the group. And we have to be really mindful about what that looks like and what that word is, and really break that down, because again, that could be a various type of unconscious bias that we're using and don't realize it in terms of making a decision about who we're hiring. And again, you talked about it earlier. A lot of times we want to work with and be around individuals who have similarities as we do. And we have to be mindful that again, can lead to unconscious bias. The other piece that I would share outside of like hiring practices that you mentioned, but looking at exit interviews, because a lot of times people think about, oh, someone just like they left because they got a better opportunity. Well, they may have got a better opportunity. They probably also left because of some other practices or things that were done where they didn't feel included or they felt excluded in different ways. And so those exit interviews can really capture, again, unconscious bias that we may not realize that are part of our systems or our environments that are part of the workplace. And I keep saying last, but I'll share one more. And then I would love to see those in the chat share other ways that people mitigate unconscious bias. The other thing I would share is about looking at our messaging. So what type of, like, I've seen organizations use of what type of messaging are we using to talk about our environment, to talk about our department, from marketing, how we're communicating our job that we have available, what platforms are we using, how are we describing certain positions, and even looking at our practices in terms of like what language, shared language and terminology are we using when it comes to talking about diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, all those DEIB related words. Those things, when we have a shared language, can help to mitigate bias, as well as looking at our communication efforts, our marketing efforts as well. So those are some things that I've seen, not only in my current job, but at other jobs that I've been in as well. We have a few things coming up in the panel, or the chat, not the panel.
Before we go to the chat, one thing I'd like to expand upon is you mentioned the exit interview, and those are really crucial data points that organizations can utilize. But oftentimes, I want to take it one step further to say, and then once you've collected all of those exit interviews, create a committee to review them and then create an action plan. I've seen too many times where all of those exit interviews collect dust in someone's office in a file cabinet. And so we say as an organization that we do exit from interviews, but we oftentimes don't take it that next step further and say, and as a result of what was said in that exit interview, here's our plan of action to create better practices in our organization. So challenging to go one more step further than just to collect the information, but actually utilize it.
There's some great things that are coming in the chat.
I see both formally and informally, educate about bias, give folks the space to address and ask questions, call out bias when you see it. I love that. And also the calling out bias when you see it, it can be hard, right? So how do you call that out? I'd love to kind of pose that question to the group. How have you seen that be successful? Because oftentimes as we learn, right, our awareness grows with the understanding of what bias is and how it manifests. It's then, now how do I say that in this space? How do I bring that up when we're discussing candidates and recruits and whatnot?
I know for me, Amanda, I try to don't think of calling out, but like calling in. So when I see something, how do I bring it to someone's attention? I want to go in assuming good intent. And so even if something happens like in a meeting space, I may say like, oh, for example, when I've been in rooms and people are like, oh, we need to, this person doesn't fit. I'm like, oh, so like, help me understand, what does that mean, fit? Or if it's something that, is more, could be more perceived more challenging, I would then have a conversation one-on-one with the person, and goes like, your intent may not have been this, but the impact is this. And so those are two things that I've done and try to do to be mindful of when I see things like that happening. But it can be hard, right? Because people, be sensitive and people can feel like you're attacked even when you're trying to do it in a way that calls people in versus call someone out.
I like this example. It shows kind of how has this shown up, where it shows there was an interview with a soccer coach. Then a significant portion of the interviewing has been done by the team. And the athletics department's favorite candidate was opposite of the team's favorite candidate. The demographic of the team is extremely different from the demographic of the athletic department. So acknowledging that, I think is really important to then start to say, okay, where's the bias here? Is there bias here? How do we kind of meet the needs of both the team and the department to bring in the candidate? That's an interesting example. So thank you for sharing. I see our Office of Equity conducts search committee trainings throughout our university system to ensure that those hiring processes are as equitable as possible and giving people the tools to remove bias from the process. It says we had a search advocate. Oh, that's a great idea. Serve on search committees whose sole role was to check bias of the other members. They helped the committee stay focused on the defined search criteria and would call out things like affinity bias and fit, etc. That's great. I love that there's a search advocate instead of calling them the diversity representatives, right? Because it takes it away from their identity as an individual and puts it into their role. And I love that language. Their role, regardless of who they are, was to check for bias. And I think that's important too, because that says that anyone can do that. It doesn't have to be your sole person of color in your organization. Anyone can be a search advocate and bring up those areas of bias. I have noticed that a lot of athletic coaches rely on networking, which leaves a lot of people out of the conversation given leadership demographics at most schools. That is a great point. Where are positions posted? Who's getting the opportunity to even apply? Who knows that it's open? And again, that's that affinity bias showing up. We know individuals, it'll be easier for us because we have a relationship with them. So we're only using our network, which really has us missing out on a diverse talent pool, which could also recruit diverse athletes and other diverse positions too when we have that representation. It's definitely a limitation of only using a network when positions are open.
Yeah. Amanda, we have a great question that came into the chat that goes along with this conversation. Someone's mentioned about encountering situations where the timing of hiring is important, right? And hiring managers may use this as an excuse to direct hire because like, we got to hurry up. We got to get someone in here. We're behind. We have all these things going on. So how can, we as a collective work to convince others to go through trainings or to get or to go through searches to combat bias?
Good question. I think that if you can create bias practice throughout the hiring process, it doesn't necessarily rely on individuals to call it out. So if, for example, the example that was in the chat of having that search advocate in all of your searches, they alone have already been trained to call out or call in the bias that could be taking place. Also, the types of questions that you're using. If you have a search that's coming up and you need to fill it fast, are you just everybody on the committee send me a question and then we use those questions for the interview process? That is probably the worst way to go. Instead, have your bank of questions and make sure that the values of the organization and the values of diversity are embedded into the process, regardless of how fast it has to go, because you've taken the time prior to be intentional about crafting those questions and being able to find out if the candidate brings in that value add to the organization. So don't craft your questions quickly. At least have one person on the search, recognizing that sometimes search committees come together fast, but that doesn't mean that throughout the year, folks can't have gone through that advocate training and pull from a bank of individuals or pool of individuals who had that.
Good. We got another question come through the chat, but I also wanted to highlight a point that Lauren King made as a student athlete. She said she's noticed, or they, because I'm not sure what pronouns Lauren uses, so I'll use they. I noticed the goals of the athletic department and those of the athletes are very different. And so this can sometimes not provide or allow for truthful, honest discussions on the issues in the community. And so reiterating that communication and open-mindedness are the only ways to address bias and ultimately fix the issues. Another way, again, of calling people in versus calling people out. And again, within organizations and individuals have these great intentions about being inclusive and not necessarily having a unconscious or conscious bias framework. But we have to do more than just words, right? We have to do those action pieces, which leads to the second question that we got. So what is a good response when someone asks, where are you from? And I don't know if you've seen that video, Amanda. There's a good YouTube video that illustrates that point of where you're from in a funny but very captivating way.
So the issue is not the question, where are you from? The issue is your response to the individual's response. So if someone was to ask me, where am I from? And I say Indiana, and you say, oh, great, which part? And I tell you, I'm from Northwest Indiana. And that's a fine question. But if I say, I'm from Indiana, and you say, no, but like, where are you really from? Right? It's the invalidation of the individual's response that's the problem. If you're trying to understand someone's ethnicity, right? Humans are naturally curious. You can say, what's your ethnic background? Where are you from makes it sound like someone is foreign, right? Someone is not supposed to be here or they're not from here. And so that creates that divide. So just asking the question, where are you from is not necessarily the issue. It's your response to it. And oftentimes, does that get what you're trying to know. If you want to know my ethnic background, I will probably tell you that I'm Mexican and Puerto Rican. But where am I from? And then you not believing me, that's what leads into that microaggression and sending signals of difference that we're trying to avoid.
That's good, Amanda. The other thing that I think about is that where you're from, like when someone asks, like, what do you want to know and why? And then are you going to share it too? So when I tell you that I'm from Arkansas, or, where the case may be, also, like, I want to hear where is home for you. That's another way that I tell people, like, to be able to ask that question as well. Got some great conversations going on in the chat. And so someone talked about using interview questions and rubrics so that candidates are asked similar questions and judged equally, which I think is a very great point. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think having those questions is really important. And oftentimes creating a bank of questions. I've worked with a few HR departments that have committees that their sole purpose was to get diverse representation from across the university or college or organization and have them submit questions and say, what are you trying to understand with this?
Amanda, I think you're going out a little bit, so we didn't hear you. So Amanda's froze, right? It's technology, gotta love it. So we'll wait for her to come back on, but anyone else have other suggestions? Oh, can you hear us, Amanda? You're freezing up, so we didn't hear you. So you can go ahead and repeat, please.
Oh, sorry. I think having a bank of questions and thinking about why you want to ask that question is important. Instead of saying, what does diversity mean to you? Saying, how do you incorporate the values of diversity and inclusion into your supervision, right? Relating it back to the pieces of the job description. How do you work with individuals different from yourself? Give us a time when you had a difficult conversation that raised your awareness of a group outside of your own. Things like that to really pinpoint back to the job. And so having that bank allows you to select which questions meet the needs of specific positions.
Yeah, good point, Amanda. In the chat, a great point that was made about we need to be careful not to convolute all that happens in hiring as bias or not bias based on if we agree with the outcomes. And I definitely think that's a great point. It's not about agreeing with the outcomes, but it's about thinking about the process, right? And how that process, is there quality in that process? Is there equity in that process? I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, one of the things, and I'll talk a little about this in the next slide, is the bias pause in saying, if you've done your work to be intentional about your question, intentional about where you posted the position, and you pause, you do a bias pause, and you arrive at the same decision, that's fine. Identifying bias and mitigating bias is not saying you should change your decision. You should be hiring the best person for that role, and instituting those pauses along the process allow you to say, yep, we still have arrived at this decision, and we can say we've done our due diligence to mitigate bias in this process. So absolutely, you shouldn't necessarily disagree with an outcome unless those checkpoints have not been utilized.
Amanda, I know you have more to show us via PowerPoint as we have about 10 minutes or so left in the session. So we'll let you continue to move forward.
All right, great conversation. I wanted to share just a few ways to think about mitigating bias. The first is to take your time during the decision-making process. An example that was shared is sometimes we have to hire fast because we're on limited time, but doing that can also lead to fast turnover, which can lead to more money um, in doing the search process and doing the hiring process. So if you do it fast and then you have somebody leave in a year, was that necessarily the best ROI of filling the position? You take your time in the decision-making process as much as you allow and fully assess the candidate's capabilities to keep an open mind. Think about each person as an individual, right? Work on holding your bias and affinity for different groups. If your candidate makes it to the top 2 or 3, that's great. But those personal pieces and your personal opinions, you have to be intentional about making sure that your comments have to do with the individual skill set related to the position and not just how you feel about them. I talked a little bit about this already in terms of including the bias pause, intentional checkpoints throughout the hiring process that are woven in, and so that it just becomes inclusive practice in how you conduct business in your organization. And again, you can arrive at the same decisions of the candidates, but you've been intentional about creating those checkpoints throughout the process to have a more inclusive and value add organization. We know that diversity of thought and approach and experience overwhelmingly adds to team output and creativity and approaches to problems. And so there's always a value add when you have diverse folks around the table problem solving for an organization. Changing your outlook to prevent attribution bias. How are you checking yourself? And thinking about how you can give credit when it's due and not magnify shortcomings just because they're different from you. Be honest with yourself. It's okay to have bias, to speak up where it's needed, and be intentional about how you control your bias in the process and improve awareness of equality and diversity, participate in the training, participate in things like this. It is great to see so many folks on the call in this conversation of wanting to be able to mitigate bias. We all have lots to learn, myself included. And then being intentional about writing down your opinions and impressions of the applicant. Doing so helps you compare and collect your ideas. And then when you're sharing your ideas with others in the group, it's based off of your notes and your data points, not how you feel in that moment. And you may have seen several candidates, but by the time you talk about them, you will talk differently about the first candidate than you do the last candidate, right? It's the same in like grading papers. You spend more time on the first papers than you do the last papers solely out of fatigue. And so when you write down your opinions and impressions of the applicant, it creates a more equitable conversation on how those individuals measure up to the position. And then a few more areas to consider is know your data. Who's in your organization? Looking at it from a diversity perspective, who's at what level? How many people do you have at those levels? And once you know your data and your metrics of your organization, you can then cover bias in the hiring process. If you don't know who you have, you don't know how to address the problem. A really good example of this was the orchestra example that I provided. Their gender disparities, they could then come up with a plan of action to increase those disparities. I'm sorry, to decrease those disparities in their organization. Easy. supplier diversity? Who are your vendors? Minority-owned businesses. Well, excuse me. Women-owned businesses. Where are you spending your dollars? It's very important. Pay equity reviews. This is also putting your money right where your mouth is. If you value different individuals, you have to be intentional about conducting these audits and reviews for pay equity. Pay is one way that you can be intentional about the organization practice in being able to offer folks their packages when coming into an organization. And then, of course, integrate accountability into the fabric of what you do. Reaching D&I goals should be a key metric in performance evaluation, and someone should be responsible for upholding those goals. So with that, I will turn it over to the chat and see if there are any questions.
So you all can definitely submit if you have any more questions. Amanda, we've had, again, some good conversation that continues in the chat in terms of talking about sometimes people are asking questions out of curiosity, right? About hair, hygiene, food. But then that can come across in a negative way, because if you're the person who's always being asked that question, and one of the things that I tell people is about having a relationship. So I have a relationship with you. I'm okay with answering questions about my culture, and I hope that you'll be okay with answering questions about your culture, right? But it can come across in a negative way, particularly if you just are the person who's only asking other people about different things about their culture. It can come across in ways that you didn't intend. So that's one of the things that came up in the chat. And then someone else talked about it's cool to recognize when people say things that are inclusive and the opposite of bias. Yes, people do appreciate that. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Another comment is there's a huge hygiene difference between white and Black people, and it's pretty fascinating. So I think just how we grow up and how our experiences can really shape, and they really do shape who we are, and how do we share that with others in a way, again, that draws people in versus can come across as non-inclusive. I don't know if you think Amanda's frozen, but that comment, that the last comment I made about hygiene difference, that person was making it regarding a washcloth debate. And I think that sometimes you got to know each other and understand context, because it could be very different. So Amanda, connection has gone, but we're almost out of time anyway. So we do apologize for the technical delays as well. And yes, Carl, the washcloth thing is an assumption. That's what I said. Sometimes when we put things in the chat and we're wanting to have conversations about it, it's best to sometimes have those conversations in person versus through technology in different ways, because they can be interpreted in a variety of ways that's not intended. But thank you all for being here today. And we want to thank Amanda for her leading this session. Again, mitigating unconscious bias includes intentional practices that we all can do individually and collectively. We will have a survey, so please complete that survey. And we hope that you will tune in to our next concurrent session at 2:30. We will have the PowerPoint available on the website within the coming week as well. So again, thank you for engaging with us today, and we look forward to seeing you at other Inclusion Forum sessions.